The Atlanta Braves finally get into the offseason action, signing outfielder Jurickson Profar to a 3-year, $42 million deal to help the Braves offense in 2025 and beyond. We'll discuss everything about this deal and what it could mean for the next move for the Atlanta Braves. All that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop Ball. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. If you are new and watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below, as it does help out the show a ton. Whenever you do those things, if you're listening on the audio version, you can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. And if you have been riding with me throughout this entire offseason, here's your reward, because the Braves have finally made a move, and we're going to talk about all of it on today's episode of Locked On Braves. The deal for Jurickson Profar, 3 years, $42 million. And again, we've been waiting for this move to happen for so long. Maybe not this one in particular, but just something, anything for us to get excited about. And we finally get it today. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, here it is. The fans, you've been waiting all offseason. We have been waiting as patiently as we can, but we are less than a month away from spring training, and we're all getting a little bit irritable and tired and running out of patience for the Atlanta Braves to do something, and they did something, and something significant, signing Jurickson Profar to a 3-year, $42 million deal, which is less than what he was projected to get. So the Braves are waiting. They do get somebody who actually signed for less than what he was predicted to make. And as we have all said, that's usually going to be the only way that Alex makes a deal. Now, to be fair, I have not always been a big supporter of signing Profar. But I'll get into more of that in a minute. But I'm, certainly at this point in the offseason, I'm excited about this move. I'm ecstatic. I think this is a big move for the Atlanta Braves to give them some depth in the outfield, some depth in the lineup. We'll get into more of the specifics here in a minute for why I think it's a good fit for the Braves. But let's break down the details of this contract, because we just got those here a second ago. And the deal is 3 years, $42 million. He'll make $12 million in 2025. So the Braves, you may forget this because it happened so early in the offseason, did the restructuring of some deals in order to get down the player payroll for 2025. Doesn't really do anything for the AAV, but for this instance, it's $12 million in 2025 and then $15 million in 26 and 27. That does make it a $14 million AAV for the entire length of the contract. And that is what goes against your luxury tax, is that $14 million. So that is, somewhat significant here for the Atlanta Braves if they are trying to get under the luxury tax, which they can make this move and they still have money to spend. And again, we'll talk about that later on as well. But that's the specifics of the deal. 3 years, $42 million, $12 million in this upcoming season, and then $15 million the following 2 seasons, for an average annual value of $14 million on the totality of the contract. And that is what goes towards the luxury tax. Now, let's talk about why this is a good move for the Atlanta Braves. It gives them another everyday outfielder. And look, the Brian De La Cruz move, I don't think anybody was buying into the fact that he was going to be an everyday outfielder even until Ronald comes back. And I'm not of the belief that Ronald's going to be out very long, but I do think he's going to have to take some days off during the year. You're just going to have to be careful with him, and we don't know what to expect from him. I know we're all hopeful that Acuna is going to come back and be Acuna, but what if we get the 2022 version, which is still a good player, but again, somebody that coming through it a second time, he's already kind of admitted, probably needs to be a little bit more cautious and careful with it. And so while I don't think he'll be out that long, it wouldn't surprise me if he has an IL stint or 2 during the year just to rest that knee if he were to feel something in it, or maybe he just tweaks it a little bit and the Braves want to give him a series off here or there, something like that. I could certainly see that being a possibility in his first year back, coming off second major knee surgery. So whatever you're hopeful for with Acuna, and we just don't know yet, you still very much need somebody else in your outfield this year that you can trust to be an everyday bat, not a platoon bat, which is what, the Kelenic De La Cruz situation was likely going to be. Now you get somebody that you can put out there every day. In case some don't know, Profar is a switch hitter. So, and he has pretty even splits against both sides. So it gives you an everyday outfielder, somebody that can hit from both sides. And while we're all hopeful that Tim Hires can help Jared Kelenic get on track, that's just not a guarantee. So there's a lot of, if everything went right in the outfield for the Braves and you had Kelenic live up to his potential and Tim Hires was able to help unlock that plate discipline and pitch recognition for him. If you had Acuna come back and be Acuna, you're looking at a potential really good outfield right there with those three guys. But it was a lot of wishful thinking for the outfield going into 2025, not knowing what Acuna is going to look like, not knowing if you can get Jared Kelenic back on track. Not to mention, I love Michael Harris, and I think he's going to be an all-star and have a big year. He's also had some injury hiccups in his first few years in the big leagues, full seasons in the big leagues. So you just needed another solid outfielder that you can trust and you can run out there every day. And the Braves get that in Profar. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why this is a good move for the Atlanta Braves. The other part of this I already kind of mentioned, he's a switch hitter, which is great. He can hit from both sides and he can hit well from either side. Last year, he had OPS over 800 against both righties and lefties. But look, we'll talk about the swing changes, why I think you can believe in what he did last year. But even if you don't believe in what he did last year and that it's repeatable, one thing that's always been true for Jurickson Profar is that he has great plate discipline. He has a career strikeout percentage of 16%, and it's been lower than that 3 of the past 4 years. He has a career walk rate of 10%. So it's a guy who doesn't chase a lot, doesn't swing and miss a lot, doesn't strike out a lot, and walks a lot. Have we not been saying on the podcast that you need more bats like that in your lineup? So again, even if you don't buy into the kind of power outbreak that he had last year and just the overall better performance that he had last year, one thing that's always been true about Profar is his plate discipline and putting the ball in play, taking his base and walking. And this Braves lineup needs more players like that. Now, again, I don't think he's going to completely revert back to being a 80 WRC plus type of player. I somewhat buy into the changes that he made last year. But again, even if that were to dial it back a little bit and he's more of a 15 to 20 home run bat instead of a 20 to 25 home run bat, it still gives you a different type of bat that you could put in the bottom of the lineup. You could put in the 7, 8, 9 spot and know that he's going to give you a good at bat, work the count, get on base, and put the ball in play. And the Braves would just need more bats like that in the lineup. But again, I think that's the floor for him. I buy into some of the swing changes he made last year and think maybe not completely reproduce what he did last year, but come very close and be a very good hitter in this Braves lineup. The other thing is that, and this is somewhat minor, but he can back up first base. So again, it's nice to have somebody like that on the roster that if something were to happen to Matt Olson, you have somebody that at least can handle the first base position for a little while if needed. I don't know that I would want him there long-term, but he could step in there if needed. Has played second base in the past, but he hasn't done that since 2021. He has played shortstop in the past. He is not a replacement for Orlando Arcia. And look, the defensive metrics on him are not great, even in the outfield where he is going to play. But I think the first base, being able to at least hold that down, like I said, for a little while if needed, is another positive for Jurickson Profar. So I like this signing for the Braves. I think it's a good signing, and it's a good deal. I mean, it's not a deal that, let's say he does revert back to his 2024 state, which he's had other good years outside of 2024. Well, let's say he does come back a little bit from his 2024 season. You're still not talking about a deal that's going to absolutely kill you. 3 years, $42 million. It's not a deal that's going to bring you down. And like I said, at the very least, I think he still gives you a bat in the lineup that is going to give you a battle. And so I think this is a very good move for the Atlanta Braves, for their lineup, for what they need. I'm really excited about this move for Profar. But let me know if you disagree. Let me know what you think of the deal. Next, we come back, we'll talk about some of his stats, talk about some of the swing changes that he made last year, and talk about what this means for Jared Kelenic in the outfield going forward. We'll get into all of that here next. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in a good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million. No medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. Again, that's selectquote.com/lockedon. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Thank you as always, making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out a Locked On MLB for your second listen, where hopefully Sully is finally talking about the Atlanta Braves this offseason because they did something. You can check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. I had a great podcast planned for Thursday night. Hopefully we'll still get a chance to do that one. I was going to talk about the Dylan Cease trade, rumors that are going around, and the David O'Brien comment about the Braves possibly punting on this year and not wanting to go over the luxury tax. Maybe this takes away some of that. But hopefully we'll still have that conversation. We will still have our mailbag episode on a Friday, so get your questions ready for that. I'll send out a post from X at @LockedOn_Braves. Respond to that post with your question to be answered on Friday's podcast, and I'm sure you got a lot of great questions for that now. I want to thank everybody for joining me live. We're over 300 viewers in here live right now, or listeners in here. Thank you so much for that. And let's talk a little bit more about Jurickson Profar and his journey. Some may remember Profar being a really good prospect. Maybe I want to say one of the top prospects in baseball, if not the top prospect in baseball for the Rangers way back when. Never really lived up to that potential, though, at the big league level. Got bounced around a couple of times, went to the A's, spent several years with the Padres, a little bit with the Rockies in 2023. But he's been around for 11 seasons now, which is kind of crazy for a guy who career is slashing 245, 331, 395, 726 OPS. But notice that it's a guy that's kind of been up and down in his career. Hasn't had a year of an OPS over 776 until last year when he had an 839 OPS, but still a guy with a career on base percentage of 331. Like I said, this guy has always been able to get on base, especially if you look at the past, 5 or 6 years. That's what he's been able to do, and it's driving up that OPS. Now, it's not somebody that has a lot of speed. He did steal 10 bases last year. That ties his career high that he's done twice. So I wouldn't expect much in that department. The 24 home runs last year were also a career high, but he did hit 20 home runs in both 2018 and 2019, hit 15 home runs in 2022. So it's a guy that has, that type of power, 15 to 20. But last year, getting over that 20 home run mark showed another level of power potential there for Jurickson Profar. But even if you look at, his slug last year was 459, and that was I wouldn't say by far. In 2018, he had a 458 slug as well. But outside of those two, it was, by far his career high slugging percentage. So what makes you believe? What makes me believe that these changes for Profar are legit, and that, the player that he was last year, which, by the way, just to read you those numbers, last year he slashed 280, 380 on base percentage. Man, I would love to have that in the lineup. We talked about this, I think, last Friday mailbag episode. I think somebody asked, will Brian Snitker, when Acuna's back, put either Michael Harris or Ozzie Albies in the 2 spot? And I said at that time, I don't think there's a number 2 hitter on this team, at least not for what I look at in a number 2 hitter. A guy like Profar, I could put him in the 2 hole. A guy that's going to give you a battle at the plate, a guy that can get on base. Profar, at least for the way that I like to set up my lineup, he is somebody I could certainly put in the 2 hole. If you don't put him in the 2 hole, then I think he's more of 7, 8, 9 guy in your lineup. But you're looking at somebody who had a 380 on base last year, a guy that doesn't swing and miss a lot, a guy that puts the ball in play. And that's typically the hitter that I'm looking for in my number 2 spot in the order. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him there when Acuna is back in the lineup. But last year, 280 average, 380 on base, 459 slugging percentage, and 839 OPS. Again, that was by far a career high for him in OPS. That 2018 season, I've referenced a couple times now, probably his second best season of his career. He had 20 home runs, 10 stolen bases in that season with a 793 OPS. But last year, 24 home runs and 10 stolen bases, 94 runs scored with the Padres. So just a really good year. Played 158 games. So he posted, that was a career high for him as well. Also played 152 games in 2022 with the Padres. So coming off a big year, and many people questioning, is it legit? Was this just a breakout for him? Can you expect him to do that again? The reason that I'm hopeful and optimistic is because it is detailed that he made some pretty significant swing changes to his swing going into last season. He did some offseason work with Fernando Tatis Jr. and his dad, Fernando Tatis Jr. or Fernando Tatis Sr. And that is, what he attributes a lot of his success from 2024 in. I want to read this. This is an article from Pitcher List. Try to get the name of the person who wrote the article. Randy Holt wrote this back in May of last year. So Profar got off to a really hot start last season. You may remember nobody got off to a hot start last year, hardly. Offense was really suppressed at the beginning of last year, but Profar got off to a hot start. And so Randy wrote this article for Pitcher List talking about, is this legitimate? Can we trust it? And I'll read this snippet from the article. It says, zone tendencies offer at least some insight. Profar's swing has been honing in on those spots where he's historically posted a higher hard hit percentage. He has been more or less aggressive in the grander scheme, but showcasing intention within the zone is a potential factor. Even more notably, though, the launch angle has dipped. His average 11.7% degree launch angle is the lowest of his career. This was a point of emphasis for him in working with Fernando Tatis Jr. and Sr. over the winter. Leveling out the swing leads to more consistent quality contact and subsequently more positive results. So he contributes this to leveling out his swing, working with the Fernando Tatis Jr. and Seniors of the world last winter to level out that swing, lower that launch angle to get to this power and get to more consistent hard hit percentage numbers. And you see that by the fact that his hard hit rate last year jumped up significantly. Last season, he had a hard hit percentage of 44.4%. His career is 33.5. So you're talking about a hard hit rate that was more than 10% harder of what it was in his career. So clearly there is something different in what Profar did last year compared to what we've seen from him in his career. You just don't see a 10% jump in hard hit rate like that unless you're making some sort of significant swing change. And that looks to be the case here for Profar and what he was able to do last year with those swing changes to be able to make more consistent hard contact like that. So that's one of the reasons why I think you can be optimistic that what he did last year is legitimate and that he can be that type of player once again. Again, it was a big year for him. I don't know that you can necessarily count on that, but I think the changes that he made certainly played a role in the success that he had last year. Another thing that really stands out to me about Profar last year, I mentioned the fact that he got off to the hot start last year when everybody else was struggling at the beginning of the season. And that's when a lot of us were questioning, hey, is this really who he is? Is this the guy that, or is it just a flash in the pan that we're seeing from Profar, who we've seen, have some up and downs in his career? So if you look at his month by month totals last year, we'll take out the month of March, which is just a couple of games, but you look at April, he hit 322, 404, 533. That was his slug. Again, got off to an incredibly hot start. In the month of May, 344, 438, 490. Again, incredible numbers, unsustainable levels of that. I mean, it was a hot start. You can certainly say that. Those are unsustainable numbers. Then you look at the month of June, 280, 370, 430. Certainly a dip, but not terrible. He's still able to maintain that. Hitting 280 in the month of June, a 370 on base, you will certainly take that. Even the 430 slug, I mean, that's coming down a good bit from where it was the first 2 months, but you'll take that with Profar. It's not terrible. Now, in the month of July, 267, 351, still slugged 535, hit 7 home runs. So again, we're still solid here. This is consistently throughout the season. You do see the average drop a little bit. You do see the on base drop a little bit, but the power was still there. And generally we see power go up in the summer months. Now you look at the month of August, and here's where things get interesting. He slashed 196, 336, still had a good on base, but just a 353 slugging percentage. So here it is. If you were waiting all season to see Jurickson Profar go back to the player that he's been in the past, you go, okay, here it is, the month of August. He had a great run first 4 months of the season, but now we're seeing Profar get back to who he's generally been. He slashes 196, 336, 353 slugging percentage, hits just 3 home runs. We're seeing reality start to catch up with Jurickson Profar. But here's another reason why I believe in the swing changes and why I think last year is legitimate. He finishes the month of September slashing 275, 368, 450. Again, nothing like he was doing at the beginning of the year where he had a very hot start. But I take that from a month from Jurickson Profar. I certainly can live with that. Now, still just 3 home runs. So he finishes the last 2 months, only 6 home runs. So you do see the power come down a little bit. But for me, for him to have that month where, nothing was going right for him, he hits under 200. And oh, by the way, he still gets on base over 33% of the time. But to then see him bounce back from that in September and see the average get back up to a respectable 275, to see him get on base nearly 37% of the time, to see the slug get back up to 450, that to me kind of solidifies this wasn't just a fluke. It wasn't just a hot start. He hit that rough stretch and was able to work his way and come out of it. Now, I don't expect the Profar of the first 2 to 3 months last year where he's hitting, over 300 and he's slugging close to 500. But again, I think you can buy into what he did last year because of the data that you see, because you see him lowering that launch angle, getting a more level swing path. You see that hard hit rate go up 10%. And because you see the consistency month to month, and then you even see him take a dive and come back from that, I think are reasons why I can believe in what Profar did last year and believe that he can do something similar to that again. So I'm very excited about the Profar move, as I've said multiple times now, and I buy in to what he did last year and the changes that he made last year. There's also a good article. I think this one is by Austin. It's the second good article I've referenced for him this year over on battery power. He did this, I want to say about a month ago. You can go read that as well. He talks about some of those swing changes and why you can buy into what he did and why he would be a good candidate for the Braves. And ultimately he was a good candidate for the Braves. So again, those are the reasons why I think you should buy into Profar. But again, let me know if you don't agree. Certainly we'd love to hear that as well. All right, next we will turn the page a little bit. What does this mean going forward for the Braves outfield? What does it mean for Kelenic? What is the next move for the Braves? Do they stop here? Because as I've said, pitching in my mind is still the biggest need for the Atlanta Braves. It certainly is now. We'll discuss that here next. Shouldn't have to worry when buying tickets to your next big event, and you don't when you use Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, comedy, theater, and now Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for some tickets to a basketball game in my area before snow came and wiped it out. But I went up to Gametime. It filters it right there. It tells me the best deals. I don't have to go searching out there. I know what the lowest prices are. I know what the best seats are. I can see all that and get it filtered right there in the app and find amazing deals. Plus, the app's all-in pricing. You can filter it so you know exactly what you're paying up front. No surprises when you get to that checkout screen, and you can get a view from your seat to know exactly what it's going to look like when you sit down. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. So the next obvious question, I think, for a lot of Braves fans is, maybe there's two questions. Two that I've gotten a lot of so far recently is, what does this mean for Jarred Kelenic? Well, I think to start the year, at least, you're going to have Michael Harris in center, Profar in either left or right. We didn't really talk about the defense of Profar. It's not great. He has a good arm. The range is not great. His sprint speed is not good, even though he did steal 10 bases last year. So we'll have to just see, whether you put him in left or right. But you'll have Harris in center, and then Profar at one of the corner spots, And then it'll be a combination or a platoon still of Kelenic and likely Brian De La Cruz, unless another move is made. Randall Grichuk, please. That'll likely be the other outfield spot to begin the year until Acuna returns. What happens when Acuna returns, I think, is the question a lot of people have. Look, we had a podcast on this a couple of weeks ago. Jarred Kelenic has a lot to prove, and he's going to have a short time to do it. He's going to have spring training, and he's going to have maybe the first month of the season to prove that he deserves more at-bats. And as I said at the top of this podcast, while I'm hopeful that Acuna comes back soon, and I think he does. I hope he looks like Acuna. I think he looks like himself. Even if he does, I think there's going to be times throughout the year where he's going to need to take some days off. He's maybe going to need a quick 10-day IL stint. He may need to miss a series or two. And it's going to open up the doors for Kelenic to get an opportunity. He's just going to have to be ready. He is going to have to deliver when he gets his chances. So, I mean, he's out of a starting job when Acuna comes back for me. When Acuna comes back, it's Harris, Acuna, and it's Profar. I mean, that's what it is. You're not paying Profar to come and be, a bench player when Acuna comes back. It's going to be Profar's job, and it's going to be his job every day. Even though he's a switch hitter, he's going to play every day. It's not like you're going to put him in a short side platoon situation with Kelenic. But for Kelenic, I mean, it's on him at this point. He has got to quickly figure out the pitch recognition, the swing decisions that are holding him back from being an everyday player. He's just not that right now. You've had a pretty big sample size now at the major league level, and he's not been that. So he has got some work to do in spring training and in the first month of the season to just show that, one, he deserves some playing time, and he deserves to maybe get some starts to get against righties, and that if Acuna does need a day off, that he can get those at-bats and that he'll get those starts. So it's really up to Kelenic at this point. He hasn't earned anything, I guess is what I'm trying to say. He hasn't earned anything at this point. And so he's going to be out when Acuna comes back. It's going to be Harris, Profar, and Acuna, but he can still prove himself, and he's going to need to in spring training and as the season begins. Now, I think the other question that I'm getting is, okay, what's next? We've waited this long to get a move from the Atlanta Braves this offseason. What is next? What do the Braves do next? Do they go out and sign another pitcher? Do they go out and make a move for the bullpen? Do they make another big move, or was this it? Are they up against it now for the tax? Look, that's kind of what I was going to talk about on the podcast we were going to have today anyway. And again, maybe we'll kind of get to that. I think it's a bad decision. I think it's a bad look if there are moves to be made that you feel comfortable with. And we know Alex isn't going to make a move unless he feels comfortable about it, and you let the tax hold you back. I feel like that would be a bad look for the Braves front office if they were to do that. So I'm hopeful that this isn't it, because as I've stated even before this move, I thought pitching was the biggest need. While a rotation of Sale, Strider, Lopez, Schwellenbach is great, and you could win a World Series with those four, no doubt in my mind. Outside of that, it gets very sketchy and questionable. And I don't know that you can go into the season and not have some more certainty behind those four guys. So like I've said all along, it doesn't have to be a frontline guy for me. It doesn't have to be a trade for Dylan Cease. It doesn't even have to be a signing of a Jack Flaherty. Like I see, Dina and others in the comment section say that they need to go out and get Jack Flaherty. I'm not even saying it needs to be that, but they do need to get somebody that can come in and give you some quality innings and give you some depth in the rotation. I still think that is the biggest move. It is certainly the biggest move now that you addressed outfield situation. Look, we're all excited and happy right now, so let's just dream. Let's go trade for Bo Bichette. Let's go sign Jack Flaherty. Let's go sign whoever the top reliever, Kyle Finnegan, David Robertson. Let's go finish it off, and let's go big. I would love to see that. I think realistically, we're going to see a small reliever move, and I think we're going to see a small depth starting pitcher move. I think this is the big move of the offseason, but I would still be a little upset if they didn't go out and secure up some pitching. I get it, Chris. Getting Flaherty would make me happier as well, although I don't really like his comments on social media. But hey, we'll put that aside if you can come out and pitch for the Atlanta Braves like you did last year. So I'm hopeful that's what they do. I think it's unlikely. I think this is the big move of the offseason, and I think if they are to do anything else, it'll be a small level relief signing, and maybe $5 million or less, maybe $6 million or less. And I think maybe they go and get a veteran starter as well to help in the back of the rotation. All right, my doorbell just rang, so family is home. So we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining me again. Over 400, almost 500 people in here live with me. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Make sure you follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves. And make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.